News with Bill, Episode 14, Ketchup Survival. Hi, and welcome back to News with Bill, where I tell you about all the weird, odd, and bizarre news stories that you won't believe are true. And in a lot of cases, you'll wish they weren't. In any case, I appreciate you listening. Have some good ones in this episode. So what we have coming up is, a little bit of everything, but you might notice a bit of a theme as we go through. First, we're going to talk about store clerk battered with Slim Jims, dog shoots man in Kansas, inmate who cut his own eyes out is seeking clemency, a teacher bomb threat, a topless church rampage. Where's that church? McDonald's removed an ad next to a crematorium. You can only imagine. Mom's body found in a Chicago freezer. Woman charged in a poultry pummel. Doctor ate feces to study a disease. A sailor survived on ketchup. Attempted gravy gunfire. And first up today, dead woman is not. So according to authorities, an 82-year-old woman who died at a Long Island nursing home gave funeral staff quite the shock when she was found to be breathing almost an hour after her arrival. Suffolk County Police reported that the woman, whose name has not been released, had previously been pronounced dead at Water's Edge Rehab and Nursing Center in Port Jefferson at about 11:15 a.m. that day. She was taken to the O.B. Davis Funeral Home in Miller Place around 1:30 p.m., and it didn't take long for employees to notice that she was, still breathing, and she was taken immediately to the hospital. There is no immediate update on her condition, and the case is being referred to the New York State Attorney General's office for investigation. New York State's Health Department says it is also investigating and couldn't comment further at this time. The rehab center didn't immediately respond to a request for comment. The funeral home issued a statement saying only, "Out of respect for the privacy and confidentiality of the families we are honored to serve, we are not in a position to comment further on this matter." Now, in a previous case, a suburban Iowa continuing care home was fined $10,000 after a similar mistake. In that case, a 66-year-old woman, who was believed to be dead, was placed in a zipped body bag and taken to a nearby funeral home where workers found that she was breathing and called 911. That woman was taken to a nearby hospital, returned to hospice care, and then later died. For real that time, I'm assuming. I guess I just don't understand how this can happen, especially with people used to dealing with the elderly. I mean, maybe if a resident falls asleep, they just assume that that person is dead. I like a nap as much as the next person. I just don't want anybody to make it a permanent one. Store clerk battered with Slim Jims. A Florida woman battered a convenience store clerk with a pair of Slim Jim beef sticks after being accused of shoplifting. Cops alleged that 40-year-old Casey Brazil was confronted Monday afternoon by store employees and a victim at the exit doors to the store, which is next to a Citgo gas station. According to an officer, Brazil pushed the victim to get past and then struck the 34-year-old clerk with 2 Slim Jim beef sticks she was stealing. The clerk was not injured in the Slim Jim attack, and fortunately police did not seize the beef sticks as evidence. After being read her rights, Brazil reportedly admitted to the whole thing. She has been charged with battery, theft, and resisting a merchant, and is being held in the county jail in lieu of a $2,650 bond. Brazil, who is described in court records as both a transient and a St. Petersburg resident, has a lengthy rap sheet that includes several state prison stays and convictions for cocaine possession, burglary, trafficking in stolen property, and theft. There is no word if she has committed any other crimes with snack foods. Now, you'll have to be old like me to get this reference, but Macho Man Randy Savage would be so disappointed. All right, next up, we have a dog shoots a man in Kansas. A man died in Kansas on Saturday after officials believe he was struck by a rifle that discharged when a dog stepped on it. Joseph Austin Smith of Wichita was shot in a truck at around 9:40 a.m. on the 1600 block of East 80th Street, a country road about 45 miles south of Wichita. The dog apparently stepped on the rifle in the back of the truck, causing it to fire and hit the back of Smith, who is found in the front passenger seat. Emergency medical personnel administered CPR before Smith was pronounced dead at the scene. Another person who was sitting in the driver's seat was unharmed. It was not immediately clear who owned the truck and the dog or who called 911. The investigation continues. Meanwhile, officials from the Sumner County Sheriff's Office say it appears to have been a hunting-related accident because hunting gear was also found in the back of the vehicle. Now, not to get all political because I don't do that on this show, but this does prove that guns don't kill people. Dogs stepping on guns and pulling triggers with their paws kill people. Inmate who cut out his own eyes seeks clemency. According to ABC News, attorneys of Texas death row inmate Andre Thomas filed a clemency petition. The appeal was filed to Governor Abbott and the Texas Board of Pardons and Paroles, requesting to commute the 39-year-old's life sentence in prison or re-examine his proposed April 5th execution date. So far, the petition has a whopping 100 signatures from Texas faith leaders who opposed his upcoming execution. Thomas is on death row for the 2004 murder of his estranged wife, Laura Boren, their 4-year-old son, Andre Jr., and Boren's 1-year-old daughter, Leah Hughes. Thomas has admitted to the crimes and said God told him to carry out the act, believing they were demons. The jury rejected his insanity plea, and Thomas was found guilty, which immediately put him on death row. He's been placed in a Houston unit for severely mentally ill prisoners, and since his arrest on separate occasions, he's gouged out both of his eyes, digesting one, and saying he did not want the government to hear his thoughts. The permanently blind prisoner is now under heavy medication as his execution date approaches. His attorney, Maria Levine, said, Andre Thomas is one of the most mentally ill prisoners in Texas history, and only the most mentally ill person could undertake these acts of permanent self-mutilation. If there ever was a case that warranted mercy, it is this one. So, gouging out your own eyeball is bad enough, but eating one? I hope he cooked it first because you would have to be crazy to eat an eyeball raw. All right, next up we have teacher bomb threat. So police allege a teacher in Michigan wrote a fake bomb threat against the school where he worked. Paul Jacobs is charged with making an intentional threat to commit acts of violence against a school, school employees, or students. Jacobs, who was a social studies teacher at Hazel Park Junior High School, is alleged to have written the fake threat to have classes canceled and get a day off. According to police, at the end of the school day on February 2nd, another staff member found the bomb threat note in Jacobs' classroom. The note said the school would be blown up the following day. Law enforcement searched the school that evening with bomb-sniffing canines and dozens of police officers, but did not find any explosives or any signs of danger. He was arraigned on February 4th, and the misdemeanor charge means Jacobs could face up to 1 year in prison if convicted. Now, this guy really goes to extremes to get a day off. I mean, I understand that junior high kids can be challenging and all, but hasn't he ever heard of, well, I don't know, calling in sick? Topless church rampage. According to police, a topless woman broke into a church in North Dakota and ripped a large statue of Jesus off the wall, causing it to crash to the floor. They added that the suspect appeared to be under the influence of narcotics. Police responded to the St. Mary's Cathedral in Fargo after receiving a report of a topless female damaging property. Upon arriving at the Catholic Church, Fargo officers spotted Brittany Reynolds, 35, exiting the cathedral. According to the police report, she had no shirt or bra on and was not wearing shoes. Reynolds, who was detained as she tried to run from police, was unable to answer basic orientation questions and appeared to be under the influence of narcotics. Church surveillance cameras recorded Reynolds flipping over a potted plant before ripping the statue of Jesus off a wall. It is estimated that it will cost about $11,500 to replace the destroyed sculpture. Reynolds is charged with felony criminal mischief and is being held in the Cass County Jail. Reynolds' rap sheet includes previous convictions for disorderly conduct, resisting police, drunk driving, assault, shoplifting, and providing false information to law enforcement. I really don't know what we can say about this, but she really has found a nice way to cap off her criminal career. I just can't help but wonder what kind of religious institution she's going to defile next. A McDonald's removed an ad next to a crematorium. So burger giant McDonald's has said it will remove a quote-unquote tasteless sign opposite a crematorium in Cornwall, UK, after the unfortunate coincidental placement was pointed out to them. Although this has given many people a laugh, and it would me too, they have commented to the effect that it could also be potentially upset to grieving families. So the sign advertises a chicken sandwich called the McCrispy, and it's across the street and next to the sign of a crematorium. So one woman whose mother-in-law was cremated there last year said, "Although I can see the funny side, it is tasteless, and I'm sure some grieving family members wouldn't like to see it when visiting Penmount for the funeral and cremation of a loved one." When asking what they thought about the sign, another local resident just replied, "I'm loving it." What they're really missing out is there are several marketing possibilities that we could really develop with this. Just imagine a crispy combo, a free McCrispy sandwich with any crispy purchased at the crematorium. It would be key for the crematorium to stock various dipping sauces, though. Mom's body found in a Chicago freezer. A Chicago woman has been accused of keeping her mother's dead body in a freezer for nearly 2 years while living in a nearby apartment. 69-year-old Ava Bratcher appeared in court on charges of concealing her 96-year-old mother's death and possessing a fraudulent identification card. Police say that Regina Mikowski's body was discovered in a freezer in the garage near the apartment that they had shared. Investigators believe she died in March of 2021 or thereabouts, and the cause of death won't be determined until the body is thawed. Judge David Kelly said that these allegations are very disturbing and set a $20,000 bond for Bratcher. In doing so, he turned down a defense lawyer's request for a lower bond to get Bratcher out of jail. Bratcher's daughter, Sabrina Watson, who lives in Kentucky, originally asked police to check the home after losing contact with her grandmother. She said, "What could go wrong? Apparently everything." I think we can agree on that, though. It's got to be a little weird digging around Mom in the freezer to get to the Hot Pockets. Woman charged in Poultry Pummel. A Minnesota woman was jailed yesterday for domestic assault after hitting her boyfriend in the head with a whole chicken. Police reported that the victim still had some chicken residue in his hair when they responded to his 911 call for assistance. The victim told cops he was driving home last night to the Eagle Lake residence he shares with 36-year-old Natalie Brummer when he was attacked. The man, who had been at a bar with her, said she was hitting him and spitting in his face as they were en route home. Upon arriving at their residence, the man said that Brummer hit him with a whole chicken on the back of his head. When cops attempted to place Brummer under arrest, she struggled with them and began pulling her hands away from the officers, requiring multiple attempts to get her handcuffed. While being escorted from the home, Brummer continued to yell, attempted to pull her arms away from officers, and kicked her legs around. Brummer was charged with domestic assault and obstructing police and was booked into the Blue Earth County Jail. Funny enough, Brummer was arrested in December of 21 for assaulting the same man, and that 2021 misdemeanor case is still pending. Now, I was thinking a little bit about this story and realized there is only one thing that we would need to add to poultry assault, and that was poultry pepper. And I'm sorry about that one. Doctor ate feces to study a disease. Today, scientific experiments must meet a variety of safety requirements in order to be carried out. But in the past, pretty much anything went. And apparently anything, even including eating poop from sick people, just showed that a disease was not infectious. This was the brilliant plan of one Dr. Joseph Goldberger. Goldberger went to the southern United States to study pellagra, a disease also known as sharecropper's disease. Just a few years prior, Louis Pasteur had postulated the germ theory of diseases. With his theory, it was demonstrated that diseases that apparently passed from one person to the other did so because of a germ or microbe that spread between them. Goldberger's first task was to find that germ. However, when he saw the first cases, the theory that it was an infectious disease just didn't add up to him. It is true that it was contagious. The sharecroppers from the same farm typically dropped like flies, and people who lived in the same house used to get infected about 80% of the time. However, for Goldberger, it had more to do with the food. He did some experiments in prisons in the area, but failed to convince his professional colleagues. Therefore, he chose to experiment on himself by doing something quite unpleasant: eating poop. Now today, it is known that pellagra is caused by a dietary deficiency of vitamin B3, also called niacin. Anyway, Goldberger moved from New York to track the disease, which was also ravaging orphanages, prisons, and nursing homes. His first experiment was, well, pretty unethical. It consisted of recruiting 12 healthy prisoners who were fed only lard with grits and molasses. It was not accompanied by any type of vegetable, fresh meat, or eggs. The prisoners loved it, but 6 months later, they all became ill. With this experiment, the doctor intended to show that the problem was in the food, not in a germ. His colleagues continued to insist that these prisoners could have infected each other, so he was left with no choice but to take drastic measures. Goldberger decided it was time to stop doing research with other people and become a study subject himself. He went to a hospital with pellagra patients and took mucus from the nose of one and inoculated it into his own nostrils. Shockingly, the doctor did not get sick. So, with the misguided thought of, if you don't succeed, try again, he went to the hospital, picked up urine, skin, and stool samples of the sick, and after mixing them with a little flour, made them into a pill and took it. Everyone thought it was crazy, and because he didn't get sick, it became clear that it was not a contagious disease. Next, they had to see if it could be transmitted through the blood. And in this case, Goldberger's wife volunteered. She was injected with the blood of a woman very sick with pellagra, and nothing happened to her either. And after all this, they still didn't get public support. Well, Goldberger didn't give up. He eventually found that yeast and bread had a positive impact on the illness. So when he found out about a new outbreak of pellagra in the South, he traveled there and began to administer bread to the sick. They recovered quickly, so he proceeded to see which component of it was responsible for the cure. His research eventually determined that pellagra was not an infectious disease, but a condition caused by a nutritional deficit. Now, even though this story has a happy ending and they did indeed save thousands of lives, one thing remains. Doc ate feces. So no matter what other good he did, that is how he will be remembered. And if I was in the same situation with the potential to save thousands of people, what would my response have been? Nope. They can fend for themselves. All right, next up, we have sailor survived at sea on ketchup. So it's been about a month since the Colombian Navy's announcement that it had rescued a man, later identified as 47-year-old Elvis Francois, who went missing at sea in December of 22 and spent 24 days adrift. After being picked up by a merchant ship, he said he relied on Maggi seasoning cubes, garlic powder, and a bottle of ketchup to survive. Now, a ketchup company is asking fans to help them track down Francois to buy him a new boat. In an Instagram post dated February 14th, Heinz wrote to fans, "Help us, #find the ketchup boat guy." To whoever finds this message, we need your help tracking down an amazing man with an amazing story. You may remember Elvis Francois as the brave sailor who survived on nothing but ketchup and spices while adrift at sea for 24 days. Well, Heinz wants to celebrate his safe return home and help him buy a new boat, but we can't seem to find him. So we're setting this message adrift into the sea of the internet, because if anyone can help us find him, it's you. If you or anyone you know can help us get into contact with Elvis Francois, please drop us a DM. Don't forget to share this post with all of your friends so we can #find the ketchup boat guy. A spokesman for Heinz explained to Today.com that the company hopes to gift Francois a new boat equipped with full navigational technology to avoid another disaster in the future. According to the Colombian Navy, Francois was found lost at sea 120 nautical miles northwest of Puerto Bolívar, Ecuador. In a tweet about the incident, the naval branch explained that Francois' distress signal was spotted from the air. The sailor had written the word "help" on the hull of his boat. I mean, it is a nice gesture from Heinz and all, but after having to survive on ketchup for 24 days, you can be damn sure he won't even want to look at ketchup again for the rest of his life. And finally today, attempted gravy gunfire. A woman pulled out a gun and tried to shoot a security guard, while the man she was with shot a manager in the face following a dispute over a can of gravy inside a Philadelphia store. The ordeal began on February 19th, shortly before 6:30 p.m., inside a Save-A-Lot store on Chew Avenue in Philly. Investigators said a man and woman began arguing with a store manager because the business did not have a can of gravy that they wanted. As the argument continued, the manager asked for help from the store's security guard. The woman then pulled out a gun and pointed it at the guard. Police said the guard disarmed the woman and disabled the weapon. The guard and manager then tried to escort both the man and woman outside the store, and then it was on. The man then pulled out his own weapon and pointed it at the security guard. The guard and manager were able to force the happy couple out of the store, only to have the man demand that the security guard give the woman's gun back to her. The guard gave her back the weapon that he had disabled, and the couple left. The man and woman then went back into the store, and the man pulled out a 9mm semi-automatic handgun, aimed it at the manager, and opened fire. The manager was shot at point-blank range in the face, and then the couple fled on foot towards the Aubrey Park Apartments across the street. The store manager was taken to the hospital, where he remains in critical condition. Police released surveillance video and photos of both suspects, and have asked for help from the community to help identify them, who are reportedly both known in the community and had frequented the store before. So, once again, we have a story about people either resorting to or threatening violence over a disagreement about crappy food products. I mean, really, shooting somebody over gravy, canned gravy. Now, I mean, I can see how this could be justified over some homemade gravy, but not that canned garbage. All right, well, that's going to do it for this episode of News with Bill, episode 14. Please be sure to subscribe to the show and rate the show wherever you listen to podcasts. I would really appreciate it. And I'd love to hear your feedback or ideas, so please let me know what you think. I'm talking questions, comments, concerns, compliments, all that good stuff. You can comment on this episode at newswithbill.com/14. I'm at newswithbill on Twitter and Instagram. You can send an email to feedback@newswithbill.com or call and leave a voicemail on the News with Bill hotline at 209-854-4620. And I'll play your message on the next episode. Don't forget to tell a friend about the show. Thanks for listening. I'll catch you next time.